Okay, so we're going to talk about how to do some cutting through the, it's by the way, the machine is called the KNK, which stands for click and cut. KNK Force. So it's an X, Y, and Z axis cutter. Most of them are X and Y. What I'm going to show you today is the vinyl is pretty much an XY with a little bit of Z, but the rest has got a lot of Z. So I'm going to create a new document. Now, the bed of my cutter is only, the mat is only 15 inches by 15 inches. 15 inches wide is about as wide as it'll go, but it can go longer than 15. For the cut vinyl, just make it whatever size you need it to be. So right now I can start out with a letter size document, or let's say I got one of those KLO portfolios. Maybe it's what are they selling those at? 13 by 19. Maybe I want a fairly good size graphic over that. Well, I would want to make sure I also have a bleed. So you might, or go right to the edge. So you could do a 14 by 20, and I just need to get a longer cutting mat. And you want to make sure your units of measurement would be not in points. No. That's going to be a very tiny thing, isn't it? In inches. So 14 inches by 19 inches, assuming you're doing a full graphic for an entire KLO portfolio that's 14 by 19. So, yes, that big. Happy birthday, Andrew. And I don't know what size you're getting your portfolios at, but whatever size that you need, just make it that size. So if it's just a portion of it, like I see Stephanie's over here, she's got hers. If she's going to do a portion of hers, just roughly give yourself a little inch outside of what you need. So if it's 10 inches wide, your logo, give yourself 11 inches wide on your document. Okay, if it's 4 inches tall, give yourself 5 inches, okay? Just give yourself a little buffer for the cut vinyl. Now this probably needed to be landscape instead of portrait, so let me do that. Just double click on the artboard and change it. Okay, now I am going to put my name on here. Maybe that's what you're going to do with your portfolios. You're going to start out with your name on the front. So I'm going to typeset my name, make it larger, and make it something other than Myriad Pro, of course. You do have to be careful about what fonts you're using, because a thing like papyrus, we already know that papyrus is, kind of taboo. But it is amazing. A thing like this, if they're bigger letters, we'd probably be able to do this just fine. But if they're really tiny letters, if you have a lot of texture to type, reserve cut vinyl for the larger letters if you have texture on your type. So this would be okay if it was this big. Let me turn on my rulers. So this guy is pretty sizable. I of course would not be. I would not be doing you any service if I told you to use papyrus. That would be a complete disservice. So do not use papyrus. So let me find something else. If you have a typeface like this, which is this one's called phosphate, just keep in mind that it will probably try to cut out all the little white areas as well. I know it will do it. It's not a probably. So this kind of thing could get a little tricky on the cut vinyl because it's fairly small detail. I mean, we could try it, but I'm not going to guarantee it's going to work. So let's choose something that is not quite so ornate and not quite so, not so many small details. I mean, details are okay. Gosh, our fonts that we have loaded, there's nothing here I'm really all that excited about. I'll just do Optima. It's pretty boring. Make sure you guys kern your, make sure you kern your type. And for those of you guys who don't know what kerning is, you go to your character control panel. Yeah, Andrew, that was great. That was from a previous semester. Erica gets it, Lisa gets it, and that's about it. I get it. Kerning is the fine-tune adjustment of spaces between letter pairs. Okay, now I do have the whole word selected because I can set my kerning, which is the V with a slash and an A. Instead of auto, I set that to optical, and it takes care of most of the kerning problems. So you guys, whether you're in InDesign or Illustrator, or maybe even in Photoshop, If you're doing headline, bigger type, please kern it, at least by minimum, use optical, okay? It looks better. And then if you have something that needs tightened up, such as between my R and my E, I could always kern between those letter pairs and reduce the space there a little bit. Okay, so it's not perfect, but it's much better than auto or mathematical or metrics. Okay, so once you have your name and you have it all completely designed, maybe I'm not going to get too crazy with the design, so I'll let you guys get crazy with the design. So once you get the name and you get it roughly in position, maybe where you want on your portfolio, you want to know size, how well that's going to work. So certainly know the measurement of your portfolio before you order any cut vinyl. So get it so it's the size you need it. Make sure it's probably good to use both your first and last name, by the way. Actually spread that out. Now, the KNK machine, the click and cut machine, it cannot handle things that are still having to link up to a font file, okay? So this has to link up to Optima, the font Optima. So what you want to do is you want to go and convert your type to outline. So go to Object, and you want, type, I'm in the wrong place, type, create outlines. This makes these vector shapes versus, type is vector, but it just breaks it down into the vectors instead of having to link it up to a typeface. I'm going to bring up my layers panel so we can see that. That's really important. We're not done yet in this layer because if we look, we can see we have a group layer and we have in that group all sorts of individual compound paths. For the cutting machine to work properly, we have to have one single compound path for this thing to cut properly. So after I've converted to outlines, I will select it all and I will go to Object. 3 items up from the top is compound path, and I tell it to make. And you'll see how the layer, instead of having all that group stuff, we have one path, one continual compound path. Now you do want that to be filled with black and stroked with nothing. So I clicked on the default fill and stroke. I'm going to swap the fill and stroke by clicking on that arrow. I'm going to click on the white stroke and tell it none. You don't want strokes. Okay? So this is now, in theory, ready for me to send off, in theory. Now, what I would suggest you do if you have no other artwork on this board, guys, I am recording, just by the way. I'm getting a lot of feedback here. You might want to be a little quieter. But if you wanted to give me this, what it's going to do is going to read this whole entire document. But you might go, okay, the position of this is good, but all I need is this part right here. Go ahead and adjust your artboard so that it is not touching the edges of your stuff, but gives it a little bit of white space. And this won't change the size of it or anything, but it'll be accurate. It'll be accurate to the size you want. It'll just take up less vinyl and take up less computing space. Now, so I have one compound path. That's the key to any file you produce for me. One compound path. I would then save this as an Illustrator file. Now the machine only uses SVGs, and I know there's an SVG option here, but this machine will not take Illustrator SVGs as of yet. I cannot print directly from Illustrator either. So I've had to invest in third-party software, and basically it will take, the third-party software will take AI files and then convert them to SVGs. So all I need you guys to do is make sure you have a compound path, the thing is filled with black and stroked with nothing, and you save it as an AI file, okay? That's all I need. So simple. That's for cut vinyl, just your name. Now let's say you needed a larger graphic and something a little bit more ornate. So I'm going to go to the internet. I'm going to choose something just a little bit more ornate. I'm going to choose something quite a bit more ornate. A mandala. Now, if you ask me to cut a mandala and cut vinyl, I'm not sure how good that's going to work if it's super detailed. It may be, well, I may be able to cut it, and then you have to pick out and weed out all the parts that you don't want. That's going to take a long time. So if I'm doing a mandala, I would probably want to do something a little bit more simple. Or draw it myself. So a simpler mandala may be something along the lines of this object. So I'm going to save this image, and I'm going to upload it into my Illustrator file, and I'll image trace it. Now I would recommend you, most of the time we create our own stuff, but this is just to do it quickly. And I don't know what size I'm going to do this in. Well, maybe it's the size of my portfolio. I'm going to keep it 14 by 19. Maybe this covers my entire portfolio. Of course, for me, I would probably have this be a landscape versus portrait. So let me just adjust this real quick. Let's do 19 by 14 instead. Okay. You all know how to use image trace, I would assume. If not, this might be a little lesson on that. I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to place this mandala that I found. And here it is. Much bigger than 14 by 9. Much bigger than what I need. So I might reduce it down, but I'll go ahead and image trace it first. I typically might, if I'm in a hurry, just use the little flyout menu off the side of image trace and say this is a black and white logo. However, oftentimes I'm not getting the result I want when I do that, and so I will do a custom image trace oftentimes, but this is not too bad. For a custom image trace, I'm undoing this, you can click on the flyout and it says custom, but you cannot access that. For you to do a custom image trace, you would have to go to Window and get the image trace panel, preview your drawing to see how it's tracing out, and then make adjustments in your threshold, in your how tight or low your tolerance to your paths are. Do you want your corners to be sharper or lesser? And noise is just if it's been scanned in like in pencil or something, which I have not. So in this case, this is a custom image trace instead of using the default. Now this, of course, is not a compound path. It just says image trace in my layer. So here I would want to, after I've image traced it, I would want to expand the image. Then I want to delete using my white arrow tool. I click and drag in the gray area out my pasteboard. I grab a hold of a corner of that artwork and I delete that. You don't want that white box. In fact, you may we'll compound path this so we don't have to deal with it, but this may be all we need to get rid of is that white box initially. Now this may be something that you want to bleed off the edge, such as this. So this would get cut off, and so would that. Your name may be going up the side. I don't know. But in order to prepare this for a cut file, right now it says it's a group and it's got 1,000,000 paths, and this will not work out for a cut file. So what I will need to do is I'll go ahead and grab everything. I'll see if I can just do a compound path by going to Object, Compound Path, and Make. And oh, it just didn't quite turn out the way I wanted to. Meaning it's not filled with black. Let's see if I can fill it with black and stroke it with nothing. Exactly. And it doesn't work out very well either. Okay? So the image trace option is, it's not working out so well. So I'm going to hit Command Z all the way back to the point where it is not compound pathed. Okay? I'm investigating something right now. Okay. So what I'm going to do in this image is I'm going to get rid of the white because that's part of the thing that's giving me the problem. So I'm clicking on something that's white. I go to Select, Same, Fill Color. And then I use the Delete key and I delete that. Okay, so nothing is filled with white anymore. And these hopefully have become a little bit more individualized. Now I can go to Object, Compound Path, and Make, and it acts correctly. Okay. When you're making compound paths, if you have two different colors, like I had white shapes and black shapes, if you have two different colors, it adopts the topmost color and it gets kind of wacky. So I deleted the white shapes, then I could compound path this, and now it can be used as a cut file. okay? But if I had white fills anywhere, it's going to give me problems. So in this case, I would save this file, save as. And by the way, when you're saving your files, maybe you should save it as your name. And maybe you should save it as vinyl if it's cut vinyl, so I know what it is you're ordering. And maybe the color of vinyl that you want. That way, at least the file will show me, okay, at least I'm close. It's Lisa's stuff. She wants cut vinyl, or she wants a sticker or whatever, and she wants it, for cut vinyl, maybe she wants it red. So for me, it's Rebecca vinyl and red. Do not colorize this red. I am not printing your stuff. I am cutting it. The cutter doesn't recognize color. It only recognizes solid shapes. So please just leave this black. That's all it needs, okay? I can upload this, and I can upload it to the cutter and turn it into an SVG in my Make the Cut program, and then provide this as a cut piece of vinyl, okay? So that's cut vinyl. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about a sticker. I'm going to create a new document. In this event, I'm going to create a letter size document, and the reason why is because the sticker paper that I have, which I've purchased and at cost I'm selling at 55 cents a sheet. I know that seems expensive, but it was expensive stuff. The sticker sheets are 55 cents a sheet, and they only come in 8.5 by 11, at least as far as I've found. And I'm going to hit OK. Now they don't go all the way to the edge, so you'll want to make sure that whatever you're producing here is not exactly to the edge. Now, when you're doing something that is going to be printed on and then cut, you definitely want to have a design layer, okay, and a cut layer. So here in my Illustrator file, I'm creating a design layer and cut layer. Normally I design in InDesign, but InDesign is not real friendly with this cutter, so I'm having to do everything in Illustrator. So for those of you guys who love your InDesign, you can probably copy and paste between InDesign and Illustrator. But the design definitely matters, and it certainly needs to align to the cut file. So let's say I have a design, and it's going to be very simple, just to save time here. My design is just circles filled with different colors. Going to be super, super simple here. It's not going to be pretty. Let me just create something just basic. So these are my 3 things. They're not going to be on my business card. Let me do a multiply blending mode because I think it'll look nicer. And I'll get some sort of business card size here in just a second. Oh no, this isn't business cards. This is stickers. But maybe I want to print this on my sticker. And maybe I have an address area out here. Maybe I'm going to send this to myself. You guys will get names of who's coming here in a little bit. I don't have them yet. And of course, you want to choose something other than Myriad Pro because nothing says I'm lazy like the default font. Nobody's impressed by you using the default font, I can tell you that right now. Not a good idea. I am pretty positive on that one. Yeah, but thank you for asking for clarity, though. Okay, so this is going to be my sticker. Okay, and eventually I might put addresses and stuff, but for now, for Portfolio Day, you don't need all that. Now, I need to know what shape the sticker is going to be. So I might have an area where I have the name in a rectangle. Okay. Like for now, I'm going to fill that with nothing and stroke it with black just so I can see it. And then I'm going to have a shape going around these other shapes. So circles around these circles. So I'm going to have to draw additional circles for each one of these from the centers out so that I can function with an outline around this. I don't necessarily want to have to register. Like if you have something printed and you want me to make a sticker, I really do need a little white space. The reason why is because I'm having to manually register your print to the machine. So I'm giving this a little bit of white. Now I probably should put these all on their own layer because this is going to be the cut file. Okay, so I should be putting those on the cut design, which they are. But I have the design elements on the wrong layer, so let me put these design elements on the correct layer. Put those on the design layer so I can turn them off. Okay, so we know that this stuff fits really well within this shape. Okay, we might go ahead and select all of it, make sure it's the right size. I'm going to hit the rulers. Maybe you don't need it this large, maybe you need it smaller. So get them whatever size you want. As long as it falls within the 8.5 by 11, that's fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to position it not all the way up in the corner, but near the corner. And that looks pretty good. Now I also would check, if it's your 55 cents and it's your time that you're paying for in the cutter, you might want to check to see if this fits better vertically. So I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. Will I be able to get more of them in this way? Oops, excuse me. It looks like I can fit 2 up that way. This is probably a better use of the paper. And then I can fit several this way. Now I'm not going to marry this just yet. I can put, it looks like I can get 8 of these per label. Now I'm not ready to copy and paste those yet because I'm not done with what I need to do for my cut file. I think this is a good position to start with. And what I need to do now is I'm going to turn the design layer off. This is exactly the size I need it. So this is, I get it exactly the size and kind of figure out how many I can get on a page. Then I delete them all and get back to my initial one. I turn off the design. I'm going to fill these with black and stroke them with nothing. Now I need to kind of merge these all together before I make them a compound path. So I'm going to bring up my Pathfinder panel. Let me go to Window and Pathfinder. Love this thing. I can merge them or I could do Remove Overlap, which is this one, but they're all one continuous shape. That's super important. Now, even though it says path here, I still need to, it's one simple shape. I still need to make this a compound path. So I have to go to Object, Compound Path, and Make. Okay, that's compound path. Great. Now, what you will do is you will turn on your design layer, even though we can't see it because, well, we'll put the cut file in, whoops. Well, you still can't see it probably because of the blending modes. But we'll put the, we'll take all of it. Darn it, I really want that design file to be seen. Cut file is in the back. Okay, because these have blending modes and everything's in black, you can't see it. But I'm going to take everything and I'm going to copy it. This is including the design layer. I'm going to copy them, duplicate them basically, and I'm going to grab all of the ones that I've already duplicated. I'm going to duplicate them some more by moving them. I'm holding just the Alt key to copy and the Shift key to paste and putting it in position, and then hit Command D and Command D again, and there I have all of them ready. I turn off the design layer. Okay, this means that only the cut file, which, uh-oh, look at all those compound paths. That's a lot of compound paths. I can't forget to do this. Okay, you guys cannot forget to do this when you're setting your stuff up if you have multiples. Click on the cut file layer and make sure you go to Object and Compound Path those again so it becomes one compound path. If it's multiples, it will not work. Okay? Do not move these after you have them positioned because your design layer is also in position and you don't want to screw this up. So when you're printing this file, you're going to print this and turn off the cut file. You're going to give me the printed file and I'm going to take it home and I'm going to use this one to cut with. But before I do that, I want to be able to register your stuff, both the print and the cut, and I'm going to have to do that manually. So what I need you to do when you have a print, what we call it a print and cut file. When you have a print and cut file, in order for me to register your stuff, you really need to put a little crosshair up in the corner, making sure it's in the printable area of your document, okay? Now, bad thing is, these are strokes, these are not paths, and these need to be shapes versus lines. So You have to, when you're making your little guy for me to register, I'm going to bring him in just a little bit. I want to make sure he's not too close to the edge because I need him. He needs to show up in the print and also in the cut file. When you have anything that's a stroke or a line, you have to convert that to an outline. So I go to Object, Path, Outline, Stroke. If you don't do that, it cannot create the compound path without giving you problems. So turn your strokes to outlines, which are actual paths. Then make sure that you select everything on that layer and go back again to Object, Compound Path, Make. They should all be one. Okay? Now I'm going to choose this little cross, only the cross. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go to the design layer. Let me turn this layer off. I'm going to go to the design layer, and I'm going to go Edit, Paste in Place. It's exactly and identical the spot that the cut file is in. That will print, but it's outside of the area where it's live, where your sticker is. I just need one of these little guys. Now, in the design layer, you don't have to compound path him. It doesn't matter. He's just printing. The compound path stuff just has to happen in the cut layer. Okay? But you need a little registration mark on your design layer. Do not move this. It needs to be exactly in the same place as your cut file's registration mark. Okay? So I have my design finished, and I would conceivably print this on the printer. Run this through the printer. And by the way, we can run those, we have run those sticker labels through these. It's fine. And then you give it to me. You create your file just like I've instructed. You turn off your design layer. Make sure you have one compound path in your cut file. And you do this. You go to File, Save As. And in this case, I'm going to pretend I'm Lisa. Lisa, label, cut file. Okay? Lisa label cut file. You can even put spaces between those if it drives you nuts. This tells me that this is Lisa's cut file and she wants labels. She's not wanting cut vinyl here. So this is only going to save the layer that's visible. So make sure you turn off the design layer. I mean, it actually saves both, but when I import it into my Make the Cut software, it will only import the layer that's turned on. I will not turn off and on your layers for you. I will not create your compound paths for you. I will not create this registration mark for you. That is your job. Okay? Now, Lisa would give me, through an email or some other format, and Adobe Illustrator files are pretty small, she would just send this to me, and she'd say, hey, I'm looking for, I've got this, and she'd also have to physically give me her prints. Has to be printed first and then cut next. I cannot cut these and then run them through the printer and hope it lines up. It will never line up. You need to print them first, give me the printout, send me the cut file, then I can cut them. Okay? All right, so that's labels. Awesome. Labels are awesome. Not one step in difficulty, certainly above the vinyl, because you have more layers involved, and you have to have your design and the cut file together, but yet in different layers. Okay? Now let's talk about that fancy business card thing I did, where we were playing around with. It's the one I showed you where I did a curved card with a score. So I'm going to do some sort of funky cut card with, and I'm going to maybe fold it so that way I can show you guys the example of how we would do this. Now, your sheet size on this is, if you're going to use the paper that I'm selling, I'm going to create a new document here. Your sheet size for this, the maximum printable area on this 12 by 18 sheet, your maximum printable area is probably about 11.5 by 17.5, but the whole sheet is 12 by 18. So I'm going to just make this 12 inches wide by 18 inches tall because that's the actual sheet size that I'm going to be cutting these out of. Now I only got 9 up on mine last night and Friday. because I need to get another cutting mat that'll accommodate this 18 inches long. My cutting mat's only 15 by 15. So to start this, I'm going to create a few layers. One layer called my design. It's where my design elements are going to be. And if this is front and back, you may have design front and design back, especially if you have a folded card. So this would be design front side. And you would have one called design back side. And then you would have, for your layering, you would have a cut file, and your last layer would be a score file. So I know we've talked about Martha, the tool we call Martha. It's a scoring device, and some of you may, I know one of you at least has a Martha at home, a Martha scoring tool. But I did get the scoring thing to work. Now, I have not tested it on as to whether or not it will scrape all the ink off of this printed sheet, which it probably will. So I have to test that. So I've got my layers ready. I'm going to turn off my design front and back just because I don't need it right now. And I'm going to just start with the shape of my business card. I'm only going to do one. I just got to get that down right before I do anything else. Now the standard size of a business card in general is 2 inches by 3.5 inches. That's your standard. I know for some of you guys who are ordering cards on moo.com, they have very unusual sizes. But the standard size is, I'm going to do 3.5 inches wide by 2 inches tall in this case. So I just clicked on my rectangle tool, clicked anywhere on the artboard, and then it came up with this width and height. I just typed it in. Now you want this filled but not stroked because this is going to be a cut file. Oh, by the way, I am not going to cut. If you just give me a bunch of business cards that are rectangular like this on a 12 by 18, and you just have the normal 2 by 3.5 like this, I am not cutting your cards for you. That's a waste of my good blade. Okay? If you have a regular 2 by 3.5 or rectangular shape, you're on your own, sweetie. Just use an X-Acto knife and a ruler just the way I would. I wouldn't even put this on my cutter. It's a waste of those blades are expensive. So I'm not going to cut your business cards because you're just, I don't want to cut them. Now, if it's a custom shape that you can't do easily with an X-Acto knife, then I don't mind assisting. Now, this might be, if this is a folder card, I'm going to need 2 of these stacked right on top of one another. Okay, so the fold would be right here where the 2 meet. So I'm going to draw a line where that fold is, so it matches perfectly. Now the line is not a cut file, it's a score file, and I just happen to be on my score layer, so that's in the right place. But these 2 objects, the cut file, need to go up to the cut file layer. Now your score, I am going to stroke this with just a regular old 1-point stroke, black. And make sure your fill is on none. But we learned from the last thing we did that we have to take anything that is a line and turn it into a path. So while I'm here, I might as well do that. Object, path, outline, the stroke. So I'm converting a stroke to an actual path, and now it is a path. Now, if you are printing on super heavy stock, like the 120 pound, what I would recommend that you do is do a double score. A double score helps fold it, helps keep the fold. I don't know, but the sample I passed around when it was folded, this is 120 pound that I passed around. When it's folded, it wants to stay kind of springing open no matter how much you keep pressing. Sometimes a double score will help that stay down. So I'm going to test a double score. A double score means I am going to copy and paste this line on top of itself. I'm going to get rid of the middle one. The middle one was just there as a guide, but this will score twice. I don't want it too wide, but this will score twice, and it's going to be roughly centered. It kind of accommodates for the thickness of the card, of the paper stock. So we'll see how that works. And I know it's really close together, but the machine will actually score that twice. So I have my scores done. I'm not going to compound path them yet, but I am going to lock them for now. I'll leave them turned on, and now I'm ready to go to the cut file. Now again, if yours is rectangular, just score them yourself and cut them yourself, but we're going to do something fancy here. Now I know that lace patterning is a little too much for the machine, at least with this paper stock. So for heavier stocks, it needs to be a little bit, a slightly simpler form. I'm going to turn my rulers, and I'm going to pull down a guide just so I can see where I'm at here. Okay. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. That's why I can't pull my guides down. And I need to know, I'm going to cut off about that much of that card because I want a little, on the bottom of my card, I want about this much information to show through right here. Right in there. So that's going to be exposed down there. So when this is folded down, I want that part exposed. Maybe it's my name, maybe it's something, I don't know. I haven't designed the card yet. So this is just theoretically. So I'm going to lop off a little bit of this card. So that part up here I'm not even going to use. Now I am going to start creating some shape. I don't know. Bear with me. It's not going to be pretty. And I'm going to have, maybe I'm selling water. And I want a wavy card because I sell water. Like, you're selling water. Water's free. No, it's not anymore. Used to be. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this off. I know this is not pretty, and usually I would spend more time. And I'm going to position this where I want it, so optically it just seems to fit better where the paths stop and start on this thing. Okay, so it's definitely not symmetrical, but for a demo I think we'll do okay. I'm going to fill this with black and stroke it with nothing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out of the main 2 by 3.5 inch block up here. Now I could try a couple of different shape modes. Well, it's not unite, certainly, and it's probably not even minus front. I don't know if I can find minus back. That would be great. There we go. No, that doesn't even work either. So when you have a problem and it doesn't work because they're complicated shapes, what I will oftentimes do is I will take my Pathfinder and I will just divide it using the divide tool, then get my direct selection tool, which is the white arrow. I click and drag over, come in contact with those pieces that I don't want, and I delete them. Now you may have to hit Command Y so you can see the stuff that's left behind. Hit Command Y again so you can see the rest of it. And then I'll merge these shapes. Just bing, no overlap. And then when I have this put completely exactly the way I want it, I hold down my Shift key and I'll grab my other rectangle and I will merge those. Or unite them. Merging, unite, same thing. Any extra anchor points, like straight lines don't need more than, they don't need all these anchor points. So any extra anchor points, I like for my cutter to not have to think real hard, so I'm going to delete any extra anchor points that are especially on the straight edge. So this is a nice closed shape. It's not really that nice. But this is, yeah, this is too wonky. I would normally spend more time on that. But I have one path that represents my cut file. Now, before I would copy and paste this and get this all in position, I would do my design on this card, both front and back. I may have 2 artboards on this for that. Make sure the second artboard things are mirrored so that way they're perfectly front to back working for you. But now I'm ready to take, I'm going to unlock my score layer. And after I get my design done, I would also have those layers showing and unlocked. And I would select everything after you're totally happy with it. And you've test printed it on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper just to see and cut it down to see what it looks like. Don't just assume it's going to be great. Go ahead and give yourself a test print. I'm going to put these in position. I should be able to get 3 across if I'm being frugal with my space. If I have bleeds, that can create more issues as far as being able to get things to work well across one another. I like things that are bleeding, so this still gives me enough room for bleed if I tighten these up a little bit. And there we go. Now these are not perfectly spaced apart, so this is why it's important for you to have a second artboard that is mirrored this. Even if they were perfectly spaced, I still mirror it because the shape may not be exactly the same on both sides. So mirror your design by creating a second artboard, same size. Oops. Or second Illustrator document, whatever it takes. And you'll do front to back printing. Print all one side and then print the other. Flip it over and print the other side. Now once I get these in position, I will then go ahead and copy and paste them as many times as I can to fill up the piece of paper. Now, because we have a cut file and a score file and a design front and back file, you are going to have to do just like we did in the sticker. You have to create a little registration mark for me to be able to align your stuff to. Now on the design front, if we're mirrored, design front may be in the upper left, and if it's in the upper left on the design front, then it's going to be on the upper right on the other side, so on the design back. So I'm going to create, I may even zoom out just to see if I have a little bit more space to deal with. I'm going to move this down just a smidge, and I'm going to create a little plus sign up here, which is going to be my registration mark. I'm going to use the line tool for that. Hold down the Shift key while you're doing it. I'm going to tell it to be default fill stroke. Make sure it's filled with none. And I'm going to go to Object, Path, and outline the stroke. Okay, I haven't compound pathed anything yet because I'm just going to do it all at one time. So this is on the design front, let's say. I need to copy that, go to Cut File, and paste it in place on the cut file one. I need to copy it again, go to the score folder or score layer and paste it in place there as well. Paste in place. On the design back, everything would be flipped, so I would have it the opposite side. So this is getting a lot more complicated if you're doing front to back printing. Now, as far as I'm concerned, you print it and it works out fine. Everything is aligning up front to back. That's your job. Get everything to line front to back when you print front to back. My job is just cutting. But when you're ready for cut, you turn off your design layers. You will go to your cut file, grab everything, and go to Object, Compound Path, and Make. That way you only have to do that once. You'll also go to your score file, select all the objects, and go to Object, Compound Path, and Make. Okay, that's super important. And we notice that the little anchor point, or the little registration mark, he's in the same location on both of those. Now I'm going to turn off the score one, the score layer, and I'm going to leave the cut file up. And this is what you would provide to me. You would go to File, Save As, and you would call it your name, and you would call it, you could say BC Cut File. That is for business card. Rebecca BC Cut File tells me that that's Rebecca's file. She's wanting business cards, and this is her cut file. Save it as Illustrator, hit OK. Now I'm going to turn off the cut file and turn on the score file. Of course, we want design files turned off right now. And make sure that everything's just one compound path, which it is. And we are going to go to File, Save As, and this will be called Rebecca. Instead of BC cut file, it'll be BC Score File. And it's an Illustrator document. So you would have printed your stuff front to back. Make sure you have the little registration mark on preferably both sides, but one is fine. If design front, it's in the upper left, that's great. They always need to be in the upper left on the front side. That's what I'm designing for. I can align to that, and that's, again, manual registration, but I can align to that thing and not miscut your stuff. But I will run a score file first, and then I'll do the cut file, and it should work out just fine. So that is the more complicated thing, is business cards. Business cards have multiple layers. You have a score layer and a cut file, a cut layer. You also have your design layers. Everything needs to line up, and hopefully it'll work out for the best. And I believe that's the end of my demonstration for the day. I know it was very exciting, and I went probably very fast because I'm very good. I put hours into this. I'm not all that great. I just put hours into making sure this stuff works. And so my hours have paid off in a matter of a video that was done in literally minutes. So let me stop this recording.